Hi, this is Steve Teakin with Burgess & Nyepel giving you a brief update on the safety study for Cabell and Wayne counties. Just a reminder of the purpose and goals of the study. The overall purpose is to create a safer transportation system network for both motorized and non-motorized modes of transportation in the two counties. We'll do this through identifying crash trends and high crash locations in the counties. And ultimately, we will recommend infrastructure improvements and other strategies to improve safety in the counties. The main purpose of this is to help Kiowa and its partners to prioritize improvements and strategies and come up with some really good ideas to improve safety in the two counties. In terms of timeline, we're right in the middle of the timeline. We just had our second stakeholder and public meetings last week, and which went very well, and we anticipate to be finished in January with the bulk of the work where we meet again with the stakeholders and the public, and then we'll be wrapping up the report by May. Just a reminder, there's an online survey. We've only had 29 responses so far. We'd love to get more responses if there's any way you can spread the word, but this is the link here, and it's a very simple survey to do. Last time I talked about the crash trends in the area in terms of the types of crashes and such. As you can see, there's a slight trend up. I won't get into those details again, but this time we're really going to talk about specific locations where we're seeing a lot of crashes and coming up with a methodology of prioritizing these locations and coming up with what we would call high crash lists. So the first step of the process is to come up with a high-level prioritization where we do some analysis to determine where the high crash locations are, and then the next step then would be to dive into those locations even further with the more detailed analysis and coming up with potential solutions. The first step of that is really identifying where the crashes are occurring. Our team was able to locate 97% of the reported crashes that we have, which is a really good percentage. We were able to locate almost 14,300 crashes in Cabell County. And in Wayne County, we were able to locate almost 2,300 crashes, which is 90% of the total, which again is a very high percentage of the number of crash reports that we have that we were able to locate. Then our team used GIS and developed what we call hotspot maps, and that helps us to identify where the crashes are occurring. And it's kind of like a radar for weather. You can see the red spots, and then our team can zoom in on those red spots and identify, where the crashes are happening. They can look in there and really dig into the locations and say, okay, well, here's a hot spot. What intersections or what segments are in that hot spot? And then they can go to the data and pull out those hot spot locations. Our team was able to identify, I won't read all these, but the number of hot spots in each of the counties, and then intersections versus segments, which intersections are obvious, but segments are just locations of roadway between intersections that they'll have a higher number of crashes. So they were able to identify this number of identifiable hotspot locations that we could put into a prioritization list. In terms of ranking those locations, the methodology that the team developed and presented to the stakeholder group last week was to use what we call equivalent property damage only as one measure, and calculating that in a couple of different ways that I won't go into the detail of, and then combining that with just the overall frequency of crashes at the location. And what this methodology does is it really gives priority to the EDPO piece, gives priority to severe and fatal crashes, and then the crash frequency gives a priority to just the number of crashes. So we put those two together to come up with a composite score that will help us address both the locations that are having the most crashes and the most severe crashes. The number of high crash locations that we're going to move forward into further analysis, realizing we can't possibly address 119, locations in a 3 or 4 year period. So we had to boil that down, and so these are the numbers we came up with: 30 in Cabell for intersections, 10 in Cabell for segments, 10 in Wayne for intersections, and 5 in Wayne for segments, that we're going to do a more detailed analysis of. We're going to reprioritize them based on the locations that we think have the most potential to be improved. And then we will go out and do field reviews and actually come up with countermeasures for the top 10 locations. So the next step is to finalize that high prioritization list. Again, we went over it with the stakeholders last week. We're going to finalize that list and get it out in October for final review and comment, so we get those top locations identified. And we will dive into that detailed prioritization with the highway safety manual method. And this will help us, again, identify the ones that have the most potential for improvement. We'll get that list out in November to the stakeholder group. And then our goal is to have a list for each of the larger municipalities in the 2 counties to have their own list. So if they want to pursue grants and such, they'll have their own localized list as well. We'll field review the top 20 locations of them all, and we'll identify countermeasures and recommendations for the top 10 safety locations in the 2 counties. And we will have more detailed recommendations in terms of intersection layouts or roadway improvements that need to be done, and with cost estimates and detailed information related to that. Our next stakeholder meeting, we anticipate it to be next year, probably late January, early February, a draft report in March, and a final in May. So look forward to any questions you have. Have a great day.